Greetings and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently, so please let me know how you like it. I'm very interested in this type of thing. Since we're approaching Halloween and spooky season, I thought it would be really fun to do just a short video about some of my favorite lesser known H.P. Lovecraft stories. H.P. Lovecraft is my favorite writer, and the stories that he creates and that he created are very powerful to me, very personal, and I discovered Lovecraft at a very weird time in my life, and it was actually somewhat recently regarding the general span of things. But it really resonated with me so deeply, and ever since then, I've just always returned. I find like an odd comfort in reading H.P. Lovecraft, and he's someone that, me being a big fan of the horror genre, to me, like this type of build up for horror and like cosmic horror is the way that he builds the stories is very powerful and very effective. I really enjoy it. Just real quickly, I discovered Lovecraft. I was driving to Florida to stay at. I was on holiday and I was going to Florida to stay at a resort, and I was going through a really bad breakup. I was like really sad, really down on life, not really sure where I was going, not sure what I was gonna do really. But anyways, I was driving through the swamps of Florida, and it was raining. And actually, I was interested in listening to an audiobook on the drive. I was extremely bored, and I kind of wanted to try something new. So I figured, I've heard of H.P. Lovecraft. I've always heard about it. Let me just check this out. So, man, like the craziest thing. So I picked up. I wanted to listen to an audiobook, and the Call of Cthulhu is one of his favorite stories. So I actually listened to the Call of Cthulhu. It was narrated by Conrad Feininger, and this is when I discovered this channel called Intellectual Exercise. I think at the time it was called Books for Intellectual Exercise, and there were two voice over authors or voice actors. I'm not sure, but they basically did readings of the majority of H.P. Lovecraft's works. It was Conrad Feininger and Gordon Gould. Their voices and the way they read the stories is really amazing. They're both very distinct, but it really sucked me in. Conrad Feininger, he speaks in a very like scientific tone and very matter of fact tone. He doesn't try to like add to the story or make it really. He doesn't try to like be dramatic with it. He just reads it, but he has this deep, amazing voice, and it really works. And then Gordon Gold, he can speak in like a really sinister, like fantastic kind of quality. And his stories, particularly like the dream cycle ones and the more fantasy oriented ones, it really works. So I'll link to it down below. But this was kind of my entryway into Lovecraft. I know it's kind of weird. So I went back. I have a copy here of the Necronomicon. This is a collection of the best weird tales of Lovecraft. I also have Eldritch Tales, which is like some of the more lesser known stories. I have here marked Celephaïs, which is one of the stories I'm going to be briefly touching on in this video. And upon the recommendation of the great and wise Arkham Reporter, I picked up my other copy is elsewhere, but this second copy here of At the Mountains of Madness by Go Tanabe, a Japanese manga artist. And yeah, it's incredible so far. I'm really enjoying it. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on 5 of H.P. Lovecraft's lesser known stories. I wanted to just kind of talk about why I like Lovecraft so much, how I got into him, just kind of establish that. So, as far as the stories are concerned, um, you see, everybody knows like the main stories. Everybody knows Call of Cthulhu, At the Mountains of Madness, Shadow over Innsmouth, Rats in the Walls, The Color Out of Space. I mean, you know, just The Shadow Out of Time, the Dunwich Horror. So what I'm gonna focus on is more is 5 stories that I personally really like. They personally mean a lot to me, and I just really enjoy them. Okay, so the first story is The Cats of Ulthar. And by the way, all of these stories are written before Lovecraft wrote his supernatural horror in literature and really started taking off with making like the just like the master stories that we all know and love. So this is like kind of in his early days. I believe all of these stories are written in 1920 to 1921. So this is very early days of Lovecraft. The very first story is called The Cats of Ulthar. This is a story about a strange place where a little boy discovers why there is a very strange and specific law in this area that people cannot kill cats. They take it very seriously, and you find out why. I love cats, and I really like the dream cycle story. So it takes place in this strange fantasy land of long ago, and it's written very beautifully. And also, Gordon Gould narrates it, and it's done incredible. The second story that I really like is called Celephaïs. It's the one I have marked in this book because I love to go back and read it from time to time. It is about a guy in London. He used to be very rich and wealthy. His family, they were very prominent, and he he was a dreamer. He was a visionary, and he would write a lot, and he was really passionate about writing and dreams, and he would show people his writing, and they would kind of laugh at him. So he retreated into dreaming, and the more he retreated into himself, the more wonderful and powerful his dreams became. So he started just dreaming only, and he would resort to drugs to keep the dream alive and keep it going longer. And in his dream, he fantasized that he was a king of all the land and everything was great. People would remember him everywhere he went, and he would be welcomed into this like mystical city called Celephaïs, where he would rule as king. But there's a very cruel twist at the end of the story, and I will let you discover that for yourself. It's a great story, and these aren't so far like they're not like truly horrific. If you're looking for like a crazy shocking scare, it's not there. The twists are, to me, is very sad, and but it's also very oddly beautiful, and it really resonates with me. I really connect with the character of in the story of Celephaïs. Also, I really connect with the character in this next story, which is the Quest of Iranon. The Quest of Iranon is one of my personal favorite Lovecraft stories. I love this story. It's so beautiful and sad and tragic, and I really enjoy it. It is about a wandering poet, bard. He is searching for a lost city called Ira, and he travels the land. He travels the land telling people of this city, and he's an amazing singer, and he has beautiful golden hair, and he wears myrrh that he found on the mountain. He's got a beautiful purple flowing robe, and he's very graceful and elegant, and So he travels the land asking people if they have seen this city, and this is what he's searching for. He eventually recruits a boy called Ramrod, who goes with him on this quest to find this city. So they search for a long time. They search for years. They search for years and years, and eventually, Ramrod starts to age. He starts to age. He becomes an adult. He becomes an old man. Iranon remains the same. Uh, Iranon doesn't age, and Ramrod eventually dies and passes away, never having reached this city. And he dies in a very sad and kind of just a, well, you'll find out in the story. But so Iranon continues on his quest, and nobody in all the land, in all these cities that he's visited, has ever heard of this place. And he eventually finds an old guy running like a shop or something. Like he goes into a shop, and a guy does know of this city. He has heard of it, and he also knows who Iranon is. But there is a shocking realization at the very end. That's what I love about Lovecraft stories. Usually the crowning horror, or like the story ends right during like the big moment. You know, it's perfect execution. But this story, it has themes of like lost childhood and lost hope, and just like dreams that were never realized, and childish fantasies. And it's it's very tragic, but very, I don't know, it's I really like it. I don't know why I like things like this. I just do. It's difficult to explain. It's very poetic. um okay, and then these two stories, the stories that I described up to now, the three stories, they take place more of like the dream cycle kind of um, Kadath style stories. They're not actually in the Cthulhu mythos. They don't have like the monsters and the tentacles and all that. So these two stories are more of like Lovecraft's traditional writing, I would say, or not traditional, but like what more that he's known for. Now, this first one, it's called The Moon Bog. It was written in March of 1921, and he sort of wrote this as a, not as a joke, but he wrote it for a gathering of amateur writers in Boston. So he kind of wrote it just to, it was meant to be uh it was meant to be like verbally told at a party. And the party had a St. Patrick's Day theme. So he wrote a story based in Ireland, but it's also like semi autobiographical, because the main character is supposed to be kind of Lovecraft. He longs for this lost place of his ancestors, and like reclaiming an estate, you know. So he gets an invitation from a wealthy friend of his to visit him in a fictional city in Ireland called Kildare, in which nearby there is this ancient bog. The peasants and people in the area are very, very afraid of it, and they're very superstitious of the place. They don't want them messing with it. And this guy, he's a rich guy. He brought his gold from over the sea. He made the area nice, and he wants to drain the bog, um, despite the peasants' pleas not to. He does it anyway, and very strange and supernatural things happen. It's a great story. I really enjoy it, even though it wasn't meant to be taken that seriously. It was just like a funny St. Patrick's Day thing. I really enjoyed it. It was very well made, and I really like the Irish vibe. And it's also narrated by Gordon Gold. All of these are narrated, let's see. Yeah, I believe all of these are narrated by Gordon Gold, except this last one is narrated by Conrad Feininger in the audiobooks. A lot of, yeah, I highly recommend the audiobooks. So this last one, I love this story. It's called The Music of Erich Zann. The story is about a guy. He studied metaphysics in university. It taught him kindness, but he struggled to find work, he struggled to kind of establish himself, so he always moved from place to place. He didn't have much money. So he finds this, he is in Paris, I believe, and he finds this really cheap place to live in on a street called the Rue d'Orsay. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciations. By the way, these guys never butcher the pronunciations. They're awesome. But so this guy, he finds a cheap place to live on a street called the Rue d'Orsay, and his neighbor is a brilliant composer. He's this old, decrepit man that plays these beautiful melodies, and he's very technical, and he is like one of the best musicians that this guy has ever seen. There's something strange about him though. Like he's described as being a strange, dumb man, and he speaks German, or like he doesn't speak the language very well. So he has a rough time kind of communicating with him. And the guy, he keeps to himself, and he plays at this cheap orchestra. And every night, every single night, he would hear the guy's music, and he would get curious. So he tries to kind of get close to him, befriend him. So they go in there, and oh man, this story is awesome. So they go in there, and the guy, he tries to kind of tell him a secret, and things go wrong, and he starts playing the music, but he's playing it for a reason. The guy looks out the window, and there's a shocking realization. He he flees the scene and all this stuff, and basically he runs away from the street, but in he's looking for this place again. He can never well, I don't want to spoil the story, but basically the character is looking to find this street, but nobody has ever heard of it, and he spent his life like researching and looking at maps, and he's trying to find this street and trying to figure out what happened. It's a great story, perfect for Halloween. I highly recommend these stories, but at the same time, I personally really like them. I think they're worth a read, so I highly recommend them. They're not Lovecraft's like best stories, so but I didn't want to do a video on all the things that people kind of recognize Lovecraft for, is like his most famous stories. So I just thought I would do this just kind of like for Halloween, 5 lesser known Lovecraft stories. So, Cats of Ulthar, Celephaïs, The Quest of Iranon, The Moon Bog, and The Music of Erich Zann. Please let me know if you like this type of thing. I don't expect this to get like an outrageous number of views. This is just like a very small thing, kind of like a passion project for me. I love to read, and I love H.P. Lovecraft. I find myself listening to the recordings of this on a regular basis, like somewhat regular. Every couple months I'll listen through, and they're very, very short. The Cats of Ulthar is just a couple of pages. Celephaïs, just a few pages. The Quest of Iranon, I think, is probably the longest story, and that might be 3 or 4 pages. The Moon Bog and the Music of Erich Zann, they're very short. It should be like a 10 to 15 minute read if you really sit down and just buckle down and read it. So, yeah, very short, very awesome, very sad and tragic and beautiful, but also kind of hopeful, I think. So, this is my video on my 5 lesser known Lovecraft stories. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe if you would like to see more of this kind of thing. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.